What's up, Hokie Nation, and welcome into episode 425 of the Tech Sideline podcast. We're live here at ACC Kickoff at the Hilton Charlotte Uptown in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we just concluded a fantastic, about 45-minute interview with David Teel, of course, the legendary beat writer for the ACC and for the Virginia Pilot and the Daily Press in the 757. Got into all sorts of topics. Got into Virginia Tech football, a little bit about Mike Young and Virginia Tech basketball as well, but of course, how he views the ACC this season, what Commissioner Jim Phillips had to say yesterday afternoon, and a little bit into his private conversation with the commissioner as he got into some details about the future of the ACC and how they're handling some certain details. So we really appreciate you tuning in. Go ahead and sit back, relax, and enjoy this one because this is some probably the best content we're going to put out all week long here in Charlotte. So thanks for tuning in to episode 425 of the Tech Sideline podcast, and we'll get rolling right now. What's up, Hokie Nation, and welcome into this very special TSL video. Alongside the legendary David Teel in the Commonwealth of Virginia, I'm Carter Hill. David, thank you as always for hopping on. We appreciate it. And
my pleasure.
It's good to see you.
It's great to be here. I always tell my wife when I leave home for kickoff, it's the start of a new sports year, and it's like a reunion.
Yes.
For all us knuckleheads who come down here every year, and we haven't seen each other probably since March or April, since the end of college basketball. So it's great to see everybody.
Nick Brown, our director of media, is behind the scenes as well, may contribute something throughout the video, but we were talking about this a minute ago. We did a podcast in the bowels of the Spectrum Center
in
back
the press
in
room,
March.
right?
Yes, in the press room, and it was good timing because it was right after the Florida State Clemson settlement. Mm-hmm. But since then, a lot has also changed in the league with Virginia Tech and what maybe this season looks like. I do want to start with Commissioner Phillips' comments yesterday, and actually more specifically, you had a conversation with him today.
I did.
I don't know how much of that you want to reveal, but talking to him, what were maybe some of your takeaways one-on-one with the commissioner of the ACC?
Well, Jim is very gracious to grant some of the media one-on-one time after his formal remarks, and we did talk this morning, and he re-emphasized what he talked about yesterday, and that he hopes fervently that schools and coaches and everyone involved in implementing the House settlement will show some restraint, and that's his word, and he emphasized it repeatedly, and patience as college athletics works through this. I mean, it just started July 1st, and the College Sports Commission just got up and running July 1st with Brian Seeley, the ex-Major League Baseball investigator and a former Justice Department lawyer running the show. So it's still a very unsettled time, and people are already talking about trying to circumvent the rules, and Commissioner Phillips is just very adamant in saying, please, let's give these new rules as we figure them out a chance before we immediately set about trying to cheat the system.
Sure. You mentioned the House settlement. Let's direct the attention and conversation to Virginia Tech.
Sure.
How well positioned is Virginia Tech to absorb what is currently happening and the newest version of what is happening in college athletics?
Well, the $20.5 million rev share with athletes, Whit Babcock has said on many occasions, they're up and running and ready to go with that, like most all of their ACC peers and around the country. How well positioned Virginia Tech is from an NIL standpoint, because that's what's above and beyond the rev share, remains to be seen. Certainly they're not in the top end, and clearly they're not in the bottom end, as we've seen. And I know you want to get into this later, as we've seen with Mike Young in the basketball program this offseason, and as we've seen with Brent Pry and his football program. The Hokies and their donors have something to offer.
What was your reaction when Commissioner Phillips announced yesterday on Tuesday that the ACC is requiring its schools in football, men's and women's basketball, and baseball to submit injury reports?
Well, as a media person, all about transparency, and if everybody is honest about it, coaches, might they fudge it a little bit? Of course they will. But I appreciate the transparency. It'll be on the website. There's not going to be any secrets. And what's different now, Carter, is back in 2008, the ACC football coaches agreed. It was not a formal league policy, but it was a gentleman's agreement. And for 10 years, they had a weekly injury report for conference games. The motivation then was they just got tired of answering questions from media every week about injuries. The motivation now is very different because we now have far more extensive sports gambling, legalized sports gambling, and it's on our phones.
Yes, very accessible.
Yes, accessible, great word.
Yes.
Sports betting apps, legalized gambling beyond the confines of Nevada and Vegas. So now the motivation is to curb and disincentivize people reaching out to athletes, coaches, and staff for insider information to inform their wagers. And in my mind, it's a very noble cause and very sensible one, really.
They announced it yesterday that this was going to be a new thing, but what's stopping a coach from just saying everybody's questionable or not even doing it or not even giving out their own list? Has there been a punishment allowed? Did he give you something today?
He did not tell me, and I didn't ask. I had limited time with him today, Nick, and I didn't get into the punitive angle of it. But he did indicate yesterday, and then they issued a subsequent press release late yesterday afternoon, that those who try to game the system will face consequences.
Are you okay with the ACC remaining, for now, at 8 league games over the course of the regular season?
It's funny you ask that, because I'll be writing about that for tomorrow. And
Okay.
I talked with Commissioner Phillips today about the possibility of going to 9 games, especially if the SEC goes to 9, because then the ACC would be an outlier among the Power Four,
sure.
because the Big 12 and the Big 10 are already at 9. Moreover, I spent a lot of time this morning with Michael Strickland, the Senior Associate Commissioner for Football, who is in charge of putting together all these scheduling models. And we really got into the weeds of how a 9-game ACC season might look like, how it might look. And the problem gets to be the math doesn't math.
17 schools.
So you cannot have an odd number of conference games with an odd number of schools. You end up with one team not having a chair the last week of the regular season. So then you have to do something non-traditional. Do your games against Notre Dame count in the conference standings? Because Notre Dame plays an odd number of teams each year, 5. Does just one team's game against Notre Dame count? Does one of your non-conference games count? But those are all options, and toward that end, the commissioner has appointed a working group of 4 athletic directors to study the various options of future football schedules.
In David Teel's world, with the conferences like they are right now, would you prefer that every P4 conference go to an 8-game schedule so there's more overlap out-of-conference games between the 4 big conferences? Or would you prefer everybody go to a 9-game conference and you play more of your conference opponents than you do out-of-conference?
It depends. In an ideal world, I think the more times you can play your conference rivals, the better. But what's the future CFP model going to be? And that has to be decided first. before the SEC and the ACC decide to pivot from, if they're going to pivot from 8 to 9. And to be clear, both Commissioner Phillips and Michael Strickland today told me that even if the SEC goes to 9, the ACC, unless mandated by the college football playoff, would not feel obligated to go to 9. But to your point, if we're going to continue a CFP model in which you have 7, 9, or 11 at-large bids with the 5 AQs for the conference champions, you would think the more often you play non-conference games, that you have those cross-conference games especially among the Power Four, the more data points there are for the selection committee to make a more informed choice of who gets in and who doesn't.
So let's go there real fast. Do you think we're heading towards a 5-9 or 5-11 format in the future? And if so, how close do you think that date would be? In the next year or two, or maybe even further out from that?
Carl, I certainly hope we're headed toward that, given what the alternative seems to be, and that's this Big Ten and its
SEC
commissioner, and Tony Petitti, the Big Ten commissioner. He is the driving force of this, of multiple automatic qualifiers,
yes,
specifically 4 each for the Big Ten and the SEC, and 2 each from the ACC and the Big 12. To me, that's the biggest scam I think I could ever imagine.
Sure.
It would be like, okay, because the ACC has kicked ass historically in the NCAA basketball tournament, so the ACC, even as bad as it was in basketball last year, I'm sorry, they get 8 bids because they've been so good in past years in the tournament. That's not how it works.
Yes.
It essentially creates a caste system that doesn't need to be put in place.
Right, and it would be, let's make no mistake, just the mere optics of the Big Ten and the SEC being considered deserving of twice as many AQs as the ACC and the Big 12 would be disastrous for the ACC and the Big 12, just optically, because from a recruiting standpoint, because when you're recruiting a young man, yes, I get it, money's part of the equation now, but you want to give them championship access.
Yeah.
And they all want to play on the biggest stage. And if all of a sudden the SEC and the Big Ten can say, you go to those other conferences, you're only going to have half the chance to get in the CFP than if you come to our shop.
So, we're being doom and gloom right now. What would it take for the Big Ten and the SEC to get their way with that? And is that more likely than the other model?
Well, it's the Big Ten's way right now, Nick. For a long time, we all thought that the SEC was on board with this. And then, bless their competitive hearts, the SEC coaches, during their spring meetings down in Florida in May, said, we don't want to cap ourselves. Let us go earn on the field. They're betting on themselves, saying, we think we're good enough to get 5, 6, 7 teams in. That's how deep and talented we think our league are. Let us go earn it. And that has resonated with Greg Sankey, the commissioner of the SEC, to where he's backed off, and it seems he is more amenable to a 5 plus 9 at 14, 5 plus 11 would be 16, or even staying at the current 5 plus 7 and a 12-team field.
Let's go to Virginia Tech football real fast.
Sure.
That was a great conversation, by the way, too, because to your point, if that happens, there is no more labeling or mislabeling the Power 2 narrative.
Correct.
It is literally the Power 2 at that point. Yes. And then group of 7 or whatever the number would be. But regarding Tech football, I remember when we sat down in March, you mentioned the word imperative when it comes to this year. Obviously, that is still the case.
Yes.
But on top of that, too, how imperative is this season for the long-term trickle-down effect within the athletic department at Virginia Tech?
Yes. I mean, Virginia Tech is and forever will be, at least in my lifetime and probably in yours, a football-first school.
Sure.
That is what engages Virginia Tech fans, alumni, donors. All you have to do is look at Lane Stadium. Even in lean times, the place is still electric. Not as electric as when they're in the top 10, but hey, Hokie fans show out, and it's remarkable. And yes, to think a third consecutive 6-6 regular season or worse, and it's going to become such a difficult sell to the base that it seems untenable. And like, yes, I'll double down on that word. It is imperative for Brent Pry and his staff to deliver, and for the administration, for Whit Babcock and all the folks who run the department, and they know it. They've got to win in football because now there's even more money on the table, guys.
Sure. Yeah.
Now 60% of your media revenue from the league is going to be based on how many eyeballs are on you during the football season.
Yeah.
You start losing, you start getting worse kickoff times on less, on less accessible networks, ESPN platforms, and that's going to cost you money. And that's money you need to share with athletes and compensate them on a competitive basis. It is all intertwined, and it is all driven by football.
So I don't want to, pose the question, well, what's a successful season? What breaks that mediocrity, streak? What does Brent Pry really need to do this season to re-engage that fan base that, let's be honest, last year everybody was all fired up. This year, people are like, meh, I'll show up, I guess.
People want to talk about Bill Belichick being here tomorrow instead of Virginia Tech being here. Yeah, I mean.
So what re-engages that fan base that is already dwindling a little bit?
Man, how long has it been since the Hokies have beaten a Power 4, Power 5 team in the non-conference?
17.
Yeah, the West Virginia season opener in Landover. Got to beat South Carolina and or Vanderbilt to open the season. I mean, you got to get some juice early. Because if you go 0-2, and then you come home and you're playing Old Dominion.
Wofford.
And then who?
Wofford, yeah.
Okay, so then you're 2-2. So what? You still haven't beaten anybody. And I just think a fast start is so important, or at least an encouraging start is so important for this group. And especially, you've got new coordinators, and you want to see them show something. And I understand there's a learning curve, but they do need to produce early and often. And then people often ask when you're talking about coaches' job security and what does it take? Is it 7-5? Is it 8-4? And my stock answer, and I think it applies here, it depends, because it depends on who you beat, how you beat them, who you lose to, how you lose to them.
Yes.
Is it a coaching misstep? Is it a talent mismatch? All kinds of dynamics at play there. And, you go to Charlottesville that last week of the regular season, and you have another boat racing of the Cavaliers. Well, then that's terrific, and it works in that way for Tony Elliott too. That could be disastrous for him. On the flip side, if the Hokies go to Scott Stadium Thanksgiving Saturday and get run out of the building, then even if they're 7-5, that might not cut it.
We made this point with Eric Mackling earlier, but if Virginia Tech, let's just say hypothetically, were to lose to Vanderbilt at home in 3 seasons, Virginia Tech football, and I get, is not what it used to be at all. But still, Virginia Tech football would have lost to Purdue with a head coach that went 5-19, I believe, or somewhere in that ballpark in his 2 seasons there, to Rutgers and to Vanderbilt at home in football.
To Vanderbilt twice.
Twice.
Not at home, but
and Rutgers twice too, if you want to even go there too.
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden, that's a narrative that I feel like would be almost impossible to overcome.
Yeah.
And I get Brent Pry and Virginia Tech have gotten off to slower starts every year that they've been here. 2023, 1-3. They make the quarterback switch after the injury, and things slowly start to get better. You come into last season, everybody's fired up, and you're down 17-0 in the blink of an eye in Nashville. That start, again, you use the term imperative. They cannot go 0-2.
No.
And it'd be nice to win both games, obviously. But you can't lose to Vanderbilt at home on the 6th of September, or whatever the date is. Yeah. That's probably it.
Well, and not only that, Carter, Virginia Tech under Brent Pry, and even going back farther than that, it's been a minute since the Hokies closed September with a winning record.
Yeah. And
this year they have 5 September games, because I believe their 5th game is against NC State, right?
Correct.
Is that right? The ACC opener,
yes, sir,
is in Raleigh.
Yes, sir.
You know, if they're 2-3 coming
again,
out of September
for the 3rd, 4th straight year,
and your 2 wins are Old Dominion and Wofford at home. Not that that matters, but still.
It would matter greatly that those were the 2 wins.
Yeah. Oh no, I was just talking about like they're at home.
Yeah,
that doesn't matter.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, I get it. So, yeah, it got to come out of the blocks. Not necessarily like Usain Bolt, but got to come out of the blocks well.
Do you think the 2 new coordinators are going to make that much of a difference, do you think?
Brent Pry's betting on it, and he better be right. And it's fascinating to me, guys. And I know your fans, Tech fans, aren't real interested in UVA, but the contrast to me is so striking. Because both coaches came in at the same time, just like Justin Fuente and Bronco Mendenhall came in at the same time, and then exited at the same time for drastically different circumstances. But so here we have 2 fourth-year coaches who clearly need to win now. But Brent Pry has made seismic changes on his coaching staff. Now, one, the offensive coordinator was foisted upon him. He did not send Tyler Bowen packing.
Sure.
That was voluntary. But still, huge changes on his coaching staff. Guys, there have been no changes in Charlottesville. They've had the same coordinators under Tony Elliott every season. There have been 3 position coaches to leave the program, all of them voluntary for other P4 positions. To me, that is such a striking contrast, because the playbook says if you're a struggling coach, you either know you have to, or your AD tells you have to make some changes. And whereas Brent Pry has, Tony Elliott hasn't.
So is Carla Williams putting the pressure on Tony Elliott that maybe Witt is putting on Pry?
And there's been a lot of changes there from a head coaching standpoint.
Better
recently.
yet, is Carla's job tied to Tony Elliott's job as much as Witt's job is tied to Brent Pry's job?
An AD's job is always tied to how well his or her football coach is doing, and all. How do we judge ADs?
Do they win?
Yeah.
Do they win in football at a lot of places?
What kind of coaching hires have you made? And in Whit Babcock's defense, he's made some really darn fine men's basketball
100%, yeah,
and
100%.
And in Kenny Brooks, he made a hell of a women's basketball hire. And we'll see how it plays out in the future with women's basketball in Blacksburg. But Carla Williams does not have a whole lot to hang her hat on when it comes to coaching hires. Now, do I think she hit it right with Ryan Odom? I absolutely do. Does she appear to have hit it right with Chris Pollard, bringing him from Duke to replace Brian O'Connor in baseball? It sure does. But that may not be if Tony Elliott fails, it could be grim.
Does Virginia take that step up this year then, do you think?
I think Virginia's roster potentially could be better than Virginia Tech's. But I still picked Virginia Tech to finish ahead of Virginia in the projected order of finish because I'm skeptical, and I have seen nothing from Tony Elliott and his staff to tell me that they are ready to compete in this league. Where I have seen glimpses of that from the Hokies under Brent Pry, specifically with how they closed the 2023 season. Granted, against the softer portion of the schedule, I get it, but and I want to write about this tomorrow when the Hokies are here and we get to talk to Kyron Drones for the first time since last season.
Since the post-Boston College game, which is crazy.
Right. But if he's healthy, which he clearly wasn't for much of last season, but he was at the end of the 23 season when they averaged 43 points a game the last four, then, they got a chance.
What are the most intriguing storylines in your eyes in the ACC this season? There are all sorts of directions you can go with this, and I think we're going to see this a little bit tomorrow. Because obviously we're in Charlotte, North Carolina media is here. You got NC State and Duke that go tomorrow, but let's throw that by the wayside. You got Bill Belichick in North Carolina coming here tomorrow. Does Clemson
and Dabo.
And Dabo Swinney. Does Clemson take that step back up to the top this year with their quarterback, which seems very much improved? What stands out to you in the ACC for 2025?
Several things, Carter, and you're right. Bill Belichick will suck all the oxygen out of this hotel tomorrow. We're going to feel like we're at elevation and we need oxygen masks. That's how much he's going to just draw all the attention, even from Dabo, who is usually the biggest draw here. But I think this is a Clemson roster that clearly has the capability of returning to the CFP is not good enough for that. They need to advance for the first time since, I believe it will be 2019.
Okay.
And they have that capability. What they have to, and they have a new defensive coordinator, obviously that they brought in from Penn State and Tom Allen, because last year, guys, was Clemson's worst rushing defense in more than 30 years.
And do you remember what Virginia Tech ran for in that Clemson game? November 9th? Was it sub-zero? Was it zero? It was. If it eclipsed double digits.
Yeah.
Again, by the way, let's throw that out. But continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No. But Clemson, Carolina, I think those are the two primary ones. And then again, can the ACC have multiple CFP teams? And also, what does Carson Beck bring to Miami? And can Mario Cristobal in that program, and this goes back much farther than Mario Cristobal, can Miami finally figure out how to close a season?
Absolutely.
And instead of being great into mid-November and then folding up like a cheap suit.
Well, who is that second team? Clemson, all right, we're already throwing it out there. They're given to make the CFP, but who's that second? Maybe, hopefully a third. Jim Phillips really hopes that there's a third, but who is that second team that you think will get in?
I picked Miami second. I think let me pull it up on my phone.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. How did you pick the league?
Clemson, Miami, SMU, Georgia Tech, Louisville. And that may be cheating Louisville, although the Cardinals' schedule is difficult. But with Miller Moss coming over from Southern California, and he's got some dudes to throw to and some dudes to hand it off to. And Isaac Brown and Duke Watson at running back, Colin Lacey and Chris Bell on the perimeter. They're going to score. The question is, are they good enough on defense to really contend? And Georgia Tech, that's another team. If they can figure out a way to fortify that defense, with Haynes King coming back and with the running back coming back, Jamal Haynes, and then the transfer wideout guys, Eric Rivers from Florida International, he might be, aside from the quarterbacks, he might be the most impactful transfer in the conference.
Just curious, but where did you pick Florida State?
Too high, I think.
Too high?
I picked them 7th.
Oh, so you think 7th is too high for Florida State? Okay, so that's where you kind of think of Florida State this year.
I just think they're in that great mismatch of in the middle with Tech and Pitt and NC State and UVA.
The 5 and 3s and 4 and 4s.
Yeah. Well, I don't see Florida State as a CFP contender. I don't think Castellanos is that good.
Well, he thinks he is.
He certainly thinks he is.
Clearly he does.
Do you think 7th is high enough for Norvell?
Yes.
Okay.
With his buyout? Yeah, with his buyout?
Correctly. Yeah. Florida State can't afford it.
By the way, I did look it up because I was curious. Virginia Tech had 40 rushing yards in that Clemson game. 28 were from Colin Schlee. Bayshaw Tootin did not have a single rushing yard in that game. That was the game they kind of threw him out there, but he probably wasn't healthy enough to play.
One carry.
Yeah.
Correct. So everybody except for Colin Schlee and Kyron Jones in that Clemson game, everybody else combined for -1 rushing yards in that Clemson game. Anyway, don't mean to harp on old times, but hey, welcome back to episode 425 of the Tech Sideline podcast. We record on Wednesday, July 23rd, 2025. Episode 425 of the Tech Sideline podcast is brought to you by Cyrus Homes. At Cyrus Homes, our mission and purpose is to build houses that people love to call home. Whether you're a first-time home buyer, a growing family looking for more space, or an active adult seeking a relaxing home environment, we have the home for you. As one of the leading home builders in the New River Valley, our commitment to our customers, focus on quality construction and controls, and dedication to delivering wonderful homes at affordable prices has helped us to grow to meet the needs of more and more families. Again, episode 425 of the Tech Sideline podcast is brought to you by Cyrus Homes. All right, here's David Teel. Let's do it. How about some positive news for Virginia Tech? What's kind of your take on what Mike Young's done this offseason? Because there is some hype around Virginia Tech men's basketball right now. Obviously, the Abdallas kid coming in from Greece has kind of heightened that, and I think a lot of Hokie fans out there, though they are soft, cautiously optimistic, I do think there is an expectation now to return to the NCAA tournament, and I think Virginia Tech on paper could have the team where it could potentially do so.
All right, let me read you something. It's funny you ask about hoops because do you subscribe to the Field of 68
I do. Yes,
newsletter?
Sir. Yes, sir.
Did you see what came in about Neo today, where they were talking about the U20 Euro tournament?
I think David mentioned something about it. I did not get to read it yet, though.
Right.
No.
Well, let me just, because they listed a bunch of players who are coming to college ball this year who stood out at the tournament. The player who stood out the most in the U20 Eurobasket hails from Greece. The 6'9" guard was phenomenal all tournament, posting 14 points a game, 7-point rebounds, and 8 assists. Everyone is searching for a big point guard like Igor Demin. That guy this year is Abdallas, who's ready to take the ACC by storm. Mike Young sure hopes that assessment is right. And, you guys saw it when Coach Young met via Zoom with the media back, I think it was in June.
Yes, correct.
And very optimistic, can't wait to get Abdallas over here. Dorn is now here. Antonio Dorn has now arrived. And that's part. you mentioned storylines, Carter, for ACC football. A fascinating storyline to me for ACC basketball is the influx of European talent that's coming straight here to college basketball from Europe. You got the two guys at Tech, you got the two guys at UVA, and just to me that spices up, the Hokies and Cavaliers next season. But I counted among 11 ACC schools, there are 19 Euros coming overseas into the league this season.
Well, essentially, college basketball has become the second highest paid basketball league in the world.
Correct.
Yeah, it is.
So why not come over to America?
Mm-hmm. Well, look at what NC State's done. I think NC State's going to be good this year. I really do. With Will Wade there, as you know, I mean, he's won at, granted, LSU a little bit different, but he's won at VCU. He has won at LSU before that whole situation.
Dude, he won at McNeese.
He won at McNeese State. He beat Clemson in the NCAA tournament. I think NC State's going to be pretty good this year on the hardwood.
I do too. I think NC State's top 4, top 5 in the league.
Yeah.
And I think UVA is too, and I think Tech has a chance too, along with Duke, Carolina, and Louisville.
We'll see. Yeah. I do want to. You got something else, Nick, real fast?
I was just about to say that's pretty unbelievable to say to Virginia Tech fans regarding last season. I mean, you're halfway through last season. You're like, holy cow, is this team going to win 10 games this year? Sure enough, of course, they did. Mike Young can coach. But imagine telling a Tech fan 4 or 5 months ago, hey, next year they're a possible top 4 seed in the ACC tournament next season.
Yeah.
I think they'd say, oh, okay, it's worth the sacrifice this year.
Yeah, I don't know that I'd go that far to say they're going to be a double bye, but
just the chance that they're in that conversation.
Right. When we're back here in March, right down the street, it's Spectrum Center. I do not anticipate Tech playing on Tuesday again.
No.
Let's put it that way.
Let's hope not. That Cal game was a slog to sit through last year. Double OT.
Yes,
Tell us about, before we close this thing out.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about your road trip to start the season?
You've been talking to Andy.
In 5 days. I have been, yes.
Yes. Oh, and by the way, full transparency, because we talked about, you asked me how I picked the top of the league.
Yes.
I picked Tech 10th and UVA 11th.
Okay. Where did you pick Wake by chance? Right. I'm sorry, I don't mean for you to pull it up.
I know it doesn't make for great video, but I'll just go back to my.
No, you're good.
Go back to my phone and figure it out.
That is a personal. I'm just curious to see what Jake Dickert's going to have in year 1.
I picked him 16th.
16th, yep.
Just go through the whole list.
Okay.
Let's read them off.
Clemson, Miami, SMU, on second thought, maybe too high. Georgia Tech 4, like them a lot. Louisville 5, maybe too low. Duke.
Yeah, nobody talks about Duke.
Guys, I'm telling you, number one, Manny Diaz could coach defense. Just like Mike Elko could coach defense. And the Blue Devils have been really good on that side of the ball now for 3 years running. Really good. And they're loaded on that side again. They got the best corner in the league in Chandler Rivers, maybe the best safety in the league in Terry Moore. And they got Darian Mentz out of the board. People who say, oh, Duke's a basketball school, they don't give a rat's backside about football, they went out and spent for Darian Mentz. That is for sure.
A lot of money.
Yes.
Yeah, because a lot of people wanted him. So I got them 6th, Florida State 7. I picked Pitt 8.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Is it 7-0 Pitt or 0-6 Pitt?
Yes, that's true.
The most peculiar season I've ever seen. NC State 9, Hokies 10, Virginia 11, Carolina 12.
Yeah.
Here's one I picked to take a big drop. I picked Syracuse 13.
Their schedule, yeah.
Guys, they play. Not only are they one of only 2 teams to play SMU, Clemson, and Miami, they play all 3 on the road.
Yes.
And they play Georgia Tech on the road. It is brutal.
Well, then you look at the out of conference, and they lead it off with Tennessee and Georgia.
Yeah.
And I know it's a neutral site, but come on, it's going to be all Tennessee orange. There's going to be no Syracuse orange down there in Atlanta.
I think they play 4 playoff teams from last year: SMU, Clemson, Tennessee, and Notre Dame.
And none of them. Is the Notre Dame game in the Dome?
No, on the road.
So there you go. You're playing 4 playoff teams, none of them at home. It's crazy. And then I pick BC 14, Cal 15, Wake 16, and Stanford 17.
All right.
But more to your point about the road trip, 5 games, 5 days, week 1. Norfolk State, Towson, for obvious reasons, right? Michael Vick's head coaching debut in the 757. That'll be Thursday night. And then just kind of, it's sort of on the way. I thought, oh, okay, I'll stop Friday in Winston-Salem and do Jake Dickert's debut. They got some 757 kids on the roster. You know, Kennesaw State, obviously not a sexy opponent. The next night's going to rock, guys. Saturday night in Death Valley, LSU Clemson. I'm pretty jazzed about being there. I've seen some epics there. I was there for Punt Ruski with Bobby Bowden. I was there when Jameis Winston came in there and just obliterated Clemson and Taj Boyd on their way to the national championship. But that game's going to be special. Sunday night, or Sunday afternoon at Mercedes-Benz with the Hokies in South Carolina. And then hop back in the rental car and take it to Chapel Hill to see the Fighting Belichicks against TCU and radio analyst Justin Fuente.
Justin Fuente making his return.
And won't he be thrilled to see my shining face in the press box pregame?
That TCU Carolina game, the one thing I do dunk on the Bill Belichick thing quite a bit. I don't think they have a very good team this year, to your point, what you just kind of reiterated. However, I will give it to them. The ratings for them this season will be off the charts. And that TCU Carolina game, that Monday night, is going to be absolutely incredible to watch.
Well, it's the only game in town. No, it's going to. And Labor Day night has been incredibly good to the ACC from a viewership standpoint. As well it should be. You know, you're a standalone game. It's genius programming and scheduling. And and how about TCU and Sunny Dykes? They were the first game for Dion at Colorado.
That's right.
And now they're the first game for Belichick.
That's right.
At Carolina. 2
very similar personalities and coaches, correct?
Yes, who attack things absolutely the same way. So we'll see. It's going to be a fun year, though. I'm excited for this year. I know the optimism for football isn't what it's been at Virginia Tech the past couple of seasons, but I do think it is going to be an intriguing year in the ACC, and I think we're going to learn a whole lot about the questions that we just asked by probably the end of September across the board.
We will know a lot, and the ACC has some great opportunity. Just in week 1, the ACC has 7 non-conference games against its P4 peers, and each of those 7 opponents won at least 9 games last season. It is an epic week 1 for the ACC.
Well, David, this was phenomenal. Thank you so much for your time, as always. Enjoyed sitting down, talking things through.
Love the conversation.
We got to get into a lot of good stuff, so we really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right, for David Teel, Nick Brown, I'm Carter Hill. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you later this week from Charlotte.